Hello, everybody, and welcome to another summer edition of Pricing Q&A. As usual, we're going to start with one of the outside questions and then talk about other things. I want to specialize, but I'm having trouble sorting through types of clients. What type of clients are the best to target in order to work less and charge more, and what are the worst? Okay, in business to business, there are basically four types of clients behavior-wise, predicated on four reasons for somebody to actually give you any money in business to business. So those are higher revenue, lower cost, lower risk, or better optics. Sometimes they work like political points, the optics. Sometimes they work like customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction. It doesn't really matter. It's not number based, it's optics based. Looking from that angle, the best type of client would be the ones looking to minimize risk, because you have to be the most specialized for them. You have to understand their risks. But people who are trying to minimize risks are usually going to be the least worried about the actual monetary cost, because what they're afraid of are not fractions of the cost going up or down. They're afraid of fraud. They're afraid of penalties for breaking some rules. They're afraid of doing it wrong, whatever that means. And that worry usually so alleviating that worry is usually worth much more than anything you would normally charge. So if you can frame the thing that you're doing as alleviating risk, that's much better than the usual favorite, which is lowering cost or increasing revenue. The optics motivated people are also a good candidate, but I think the risk dodgers are the best. The worst would be, and that's going to surprise absolutely nobody, the cost squeezers. It's the hardest to raise your price to the cost squeezers because they're squeezing the cost. Sometimes the cost you're squeezing is enough that they don't care how much they pay you. So an auditor could revise their accounting techniques to the point of reducing their overall costs. And the cost of the auditor could be like 10% of what they return. And yes, cost squeezers will love that kind of a deal, but it's fairly rare. So in general, four reasons: higher revenue, lower cost, lower risk, and better optics. The best ones are the low risk and maybe optics, and the worst one is cost squeezing. Of course, everybody likes to hear, I'm going to raise your revenue or help you raise the revenue, but everybody says that, right? There's so many alternatives that it ceases to be the best option to say or to target. And it's basically the same with cost squeezing. There's so many ways in which cost can be squeezed, and there's not that many ways of reducing risk or getting optics up. Getting optics up is still better than reducing risk. So at least from the standpoint of possible alternatives, my definite answer would be the risk dodgers. They are your best bet.
Interesting. I was trying to think of that in two perspectives in terms of how that applies to me in my business from a LinkedIn point of view. And my two thoughts are this: if you talk about people that are chasing cost, the area I can't compete in, and I don't want to, is the advertising piece. Oh, so if I spend $100 on advertising, I've been promised this return with this number of clicks. How many will you promise me? And my answer is, I won't, because I can't. That isn't my space. That's not how I play. So that for me is someone who's chasing the minimal cost, lowest cost.
Yeah, you can say that's a cost squeezer. You can say that's a cost squeezer. But the first part about, yeah, I've been promised, that's the revenue raising part.
Yeah.
But promising anything in marketing is suspicious in my book, right?
Yeah,
if I could guarantee you $10,000 raise, it would cost you $10,000, because that's what guarantee means, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is important, there are no experiments in economics. You can't replicate the same thing twice, because you have no idea about all of the important variables, right? It's not physics, it's not chemistry. You can't know, okay, I have control for everything important, now let's see what happens when I combine A plus B, right? There's simply no way to do that in economics.
Yeah.
So
because that's science, right?
Yeah.
So when you're talking economics, you're talking about business and marketing. That's perspective on economics.
Microeconomics. Yes.
Yeah.
Microeconomics. As you say, economics is a science-ish, especially in the macro part. The micro part is all chaos.
Yeah.
So being promised anything is, I mean, fine, but I wouldn't go that far, right?
Yes. And then in my context, LinkedIn wise, the other question I had was the risk reduction. So for me, when I hear that about reducing risk, I think reputation and brand.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the main reasons why people are shy to post anything on LinkedIn, because everything sticks forever on the internet, right?
Yeah.
If I post something, if I make a fool of myself, it's not really, LinkedIn is actually not that slippery. If you want slippery, that's Twitter, right?
Yes.
It's not, but once you see somebody else get burned on something, you will be careful about everything that even smells the same. So yes,
interesting you raised that. I was chatting to a client today about an experience they had a year ago where I had this space where I was helping them with posting content. And one of the things that they said was, I really enjoyed that experience because it gave me an opportunity to get comfortable with how to post, what's worked, what didn't, what not to fumble and that sort of thing. And as an expert, it's my observation that most of us forget where we've come from. Because for me, posting on LinkedIn, that's easy. That's not the complicated stuff. But for those people who've started off in the experience, they're not so comfortable with that. Not comfortable with it, not exactly what we're talking about now. It stays forever.
It stays forever. It mostly doesn't matter, but it's true, it stays forever, and it sounds very risky because it's completely different. Especially there's a younger generation growing up right now, which inherited that kind of a world wherever you say, wherever you do, each photo you take, of course it stays forever, right? But most business people operating right now that are older than that, they didn't grow up like that, right? It's much more strange and scary for them. The idea of things taking forever. So there's going to be changes there, but not for like another 10 to 20 years. This is going to be a major thing on people's minds, probably. for another decade or two.
So it's interesting in that space, in terms of websites, you had the same impact. If you try something on a website and you publish it, it's public. Your mistake is public. But I think in our conversation, LinkedIn is far more reputational based. So you posted that. Those were your words or your image or your opinion. That's worse than just making a mistake. That's your reputation you're trashing.
I agree.
So this question talks about what your audience wants and needs versus what you do. And so one of the examples I kind of thought about was some of the experts that I work with are in the video space. And so they go along and say, okay, I can help you with video. Here's my price list. One video for $10, three for $150, four for, and the interaction they have with their customers is that their customer looks at that and doesn't buy. And the conversation seems to be that their customer looks at the list and says, that's not what I'm looking for, or nothing on that list interests me, and yet that's what the person does. So this nexus between what they want, what you do, and what they need, and how do you achieve that, or find it, define it?
The least important part, and this is not the popular answer, is what the person does. This is what the person does. I mean, imagine if Coca-Cola put front and center, we use CO2 to carbonate sugar water combination with caramel based paint to achieve the freshness that you want. I mean, there's a place for the ingredients, and it's at the back of the bottle in very, very small print.
Yes.
So personally, I have drank Coca-Cola many times in my life, and I don't remember once actually checking the ingredients because I really don't care. Coca-Cola is awesome when it's cold. It's horrible when it's hot. That's basically everything that I need to know. It's all about what can the customer recognize from what you can offer them. And the truth is, they may come to the video guy, but what they need is not just video. What they need is a well-crafted thought that they can express. So do you want a 10-minute thought, a 3-minute thought, a 1-minute thought expressed well, right? Do you want engagement video? So a video that drives engagement. Do you want an explainer video? A video that will make things clear? Not just here's a video. So what do you want to do? It may be the same amount of work to make an explainer video and an engagement video, but they're not the same video. And even if they cost the same, it would still be easier for the customer to say, I want an engagement one and not an explainer one, when they see the distinction. It may be the same product expert-wise, right? But it's still going to be much easier to recognize from the point of the audience. So it's all about what they need expressed through what they want. So you have to help them calibrate what they want through what they need, if I'm making myself clear. You have to use their words and say, okay, so what you just told me is that you want an explainer video. Is that correct? Oh, no, I want okay, so that's an engagement video. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How long do you think it will take you to do that? And if they say, I don't know, 2 minutes, and you have a 1 minute and a 3 minute video on offer, you can either customize, which you will do if your amount of work is not that big, and you want to take that, or you can steer them towards you say, okay, what can you say in 2 minutes that you can't say in 1? Right? And if the answer is clear, then you move them towards a 3-minute video. And if the answer is not clear, then you move them toward the 1 minute video. And they need that kind of steering, right? Offering them a clear menu has the disadvantage of the menu being clear to you, not to them.
Oh, say that again. Offering them a clear menu?
It has the disadvantage of it being clear to you, not to them.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost, you feel like you're giving them a palette of colors, but there's only basic colors on there, right? That's what the expert that you talked about did.
The video guy, yeah.
Yeah, the video guy. So they give them 1 minute video, 3 minute video, 10 minute video, whatever. It's like offering them a painter's palette, but it only has the basic colors on it. And if they want green, they have to mix the yellow and the blue, and you know that, but they don't see the green. They want the green, and they don't see the green. Of course, when you're a painter, you know how to make green, you know how to make any number of greens, right? The implied knowledge is what gets you here. Implied knowledge that the client doesn't have, which is, of course, you can combine the blue and the yellow to get a green. That's a no-brainer for you.
So I think I understand what you're saying. And I think for my audience, the menu has two things on it. The one says, do you need content, either written or spoken? And the second one says, do you want to be having conversations that lead to clients?
Yeah.
And so the person says, so I would just want the conversations. Okay, good. So then I'm assuming you have the content. No, I don't have any content. Okay, well then you need both.
Yeah.
Tick. Okay, good. And then the only other question is, how often do you want to be doing this? How often do you want to be applying yourself in this space? Weekly, fortnightly, monthly?
Exactly.
Okay, well the price is this.
Yeah. That's how you work that, basically.
Do those words, do you think do they resonate with someone who doesn't know what I do? I suppose that's the question. That's
a chance that you'll have to take, because that's the only way that you can get to the words that work, right? You can use those words, and if you see a face, what?
Well, I suppose part of it is if you describe a hot air ballooning trip or experience, and the person looks at you, and you've done a reasonably good job at it, and you've practiced at it, and you've been successful before, the person looks at you with a blank face, chances are they weren't looking for a hot air balloon experience. They were probably looking for a ski trip, in which case they're not your audience. Well, I mean, there must be something like that.
Yes, it happens. It happens. It happens that people stick to an idea that this could help them, and because they don't understand what it actually is. It's like fixing a problem with self-image with aesthetic surgery. It's probably not going to work.
Yes.
But it sounds good on paper, right? I don't like how I look, so I should change how I look into something that's objectively more aesthetically pleasing. So then I'm going to be happier with the way that I work. Maybe it works. I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I'm very far from an expert in that field, but it's probably very risky, to say the least, to combine the ideas that bluntly, right? It can happen that, like you said, the person was never really interested in the hot balloon ride anyway, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, for me, one of the things I struggle with sometimes is people often have a conversation about advertising, and I'm not an advertising expert.
Yeah.
And so you probably shouldn't be coming to me and asking me about that. I'm not your guy for that. I have my opinions about it, but that's not what you're asking. You're asking for an advertising solution. That's not me.
You could be an alternative to advertising, because sometimes people think advertising is the only thing that exists in the marketing space.
Yes.
So I need to do marketing, so I need to do advertising. So are you an advertising guy? No, I thought you were a marketer. Oh, that happened to me. That happened to me a lot.
The usual conversation for me is to talk to someone about in the space my clients, the space I play in, all of them eventually end up speaking, because they recognize that you can't invest enough in advertising dollars in that concept to get the brand boost you get when you stand on the stage and speak. If that resonates with you, then I can help you.
Yeah. Yeah, I already had a canned answer for all of those conversations of mine, because they happen so often, especially in the beginning, in which I said, yes, definitely, you got it right. Advertising is a very important part of marketing, just like surgery is a very important part of medicine. And there are things in medicine that you cannot do without surgery. You just can't, right? That doesn't mean that medicine is surgery and that you're going to get cut each time you visit the doctor. That kind of comparison usually works. So you definitely need medicine. That does not mean that you should start preparing for surgery. Advertising costs very much, and surgery hurts. So in my world, those things are similar. I know the costs when doing my business. And then I hear that somebody paid 5 times more my price for what I do. Why would anybody do that? So this is a classic question. So why would anybody pay X for Y? When this is confusing to you, it's almost always a misunderstanding on why they buy. Imagine a watch, right? You buy a watch because you want to know what time it is. Sure. But that can't be the only reason. Because otherwise, not just Rolex, the whole watch industry would cease to exist like 10 years ago when people got smartphones. Even classic mobile phones could tell you the time, and everybody carries one at all times. So watches would just cease to exist. They could be worn by, watch enthusiasts the same way that some people still listen to vinyl when they want to hear music. It's nice, it's quaint, but it's not exactly something that will bolster an industry, right? And Rolex still exists, so people must buy watches for other things than knowing the time, other than just pure utility. People buy stuff because of status, in Rolex sense, I think. Tribal affiliation, so I want to show that I'm part of this or part of that. Fashion, so these are all legitimate human reasons to buy. And it may seem irrational, because it is. Humans are not robots. And if we want to be honest with ourselves, each one of us has at least one irrational passion that we spend money on, even though it has no real reason to exist within our lives, because we're human. So why would anybody pay 5 times your price? Because it seemed like a good idea at the time. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Why it seemed like a good idea? That can be all sorts of reasons. Most of them maybe not logic-based. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they have a very big impact on some kind of a risk or some kind of a cost that you have no idea that's happening because you don't understand their space. So sometimes learning more or even asking is the remedy for that. But sometimes it just, my neighbor bought it, so I bought it. That's it, right? It doesn't pay to go into deep analysis on that, because like I said, some things can't be replicated that well. And if he bought something that his neighbor bought at the same price once, it doesn't mean he will do that again for whatever you're doing. If people worked rationally and bought rationally all the time and made decisions in a rational way, engineers would be able to predict the future. And they can't. So that's something that shows that no, we're We're not robots. So there can be all sorts of reasons why somebody paid 5 times your price, and none of them have to be rational. And that's just the way it is. Can I just inch into my price, raising it a little by little, client by client, until they start to say no? Okay, so can you find your ultimate price by 1,000 cuts? Yes, you can. And maybe a lot of people do exactly that, especially people who are offering expert services. They do it just like that. They have another client and they try to raise their price a little, and then a little more, and then a little more. And each client pays a little more and doesn't know it until they get to a point where we already talked about that in a different show, but about 20% people start saying, no, that's too much. And now you know you're there. And that can work. 2 problems. First one is it takes an inordinate amount of time. I had clients where their real price market fit was like double or triple their actual price when we started. So it would take them years to get there inch by inch. And through all of those years, they would be losing, well, leaving money on the table and not a small amount of money on the table. So it's very expensive in that regard. And the second problem is the markets change. So in the year of the Lord, 2021, I don't really have to paint a very broad picture to say, yes, markets can change, things can change. And when they do change, suddenly the price that you had and you work for years to get to it, suddenly it's too expensive. And you can see it being too expensive. So how much do you drop? How much do you lower your price? In the middle of a crisis, you have no time to inch a little by little downwards. Usually what people do is panic and slash the prices by half. Oh, okay, so that works. Now I'm good. Maybe I slash too much, but can't really try it out right now. It's too risky. I need the money. I need to pay the rent. Okay. You establish yourself at like 50%, and then you go up inch by inch again in the next X years. So that's a great way of unfortunately leaving a huge pile of money on the table. Because if you don't understand anything about how you got there, how you got to the initial top price inch by inch, then you have no idea of this. So you're basically working in the dark. You can find something by touch, but if something changes and in the market things change, you now are back to square one and have no idea what you're doing. That's why it's very dangerous to take that as your primary means of getting to your ideal price. Thank you all very much, and see you in a week. Bye.
Everything changes.